We're in a decade of phenomenal advancements in gaming. It feels like we're less so focused on innovation, and more so on perfecting the formulas players have come to love. Look at Elden Ring, the culmination of all FromSoft had learned in their previous games. Look at how Blasphemous 2 and Hollow Knight Silksong improve upon their predecessors in nearly every way. Look at the quality emerging Souls-likes such as Lies of P, Nine Souls, and other Crab's Treasure. Those are my favourite kind of game, so naturally they're examples I gravitate towards. But if you've played any of them, I'm sure you'll agree that the 2020s have delivered us some absolutely incredible boss fights. So in today's video, I'll break down 10 of them that impressed me the most. Just as I did in my videos ranking my top 10 best and worst bosses in gaming last year, I'll be limiting the list to one boss per game. It wouldn't exactly be interesting if half the list was from Elden Ring, would it? That aside, let's kick things off with a very overlooked game and its best boss. I truly believe Another Crab's Treasure was the best game to come out in 2024, and Topoda is pretty widely agreed upon as the best boss it has to offer. One of the things that becomes immediately apparent is how phenomenal his voice acting is. Topoda just carries so much aura in his speech that it's impossible not to love him. Square up, devil, as I get absolutely slimed by the Mantis Punch for the 12th time. Sorry bro, I wasn't familiar with your game. Another Crab's Treasure doesn't have many immensely challenging moments in comparison to games like Sekiro or Elden Ring, but Topoda certainly stands as a pinnacle of its difficulty. He forces you to master his patterns and attacks to the point where you can time your parries perfectly. I love a well-handled parry system, and frankly the Grovekeeper may be one of the most satisfying bosses to pull it off against. That audio cue as you deflect an attack is just chef's kiss. The visual design here is phenomenal. Everything about the presentation just makes this such an immensely memorable boss. I don't love his moves individually as much as other bosses around my top 50, which is why he only claims the number 10 spot, but Topoda is a boss I still love going back and rematching to this day, and is easily one of the most overlooked on this list.
This is universally renowned as the best variant of Owl. It takes all the incredible aspects of the Owl Father and improves on them in every way. It really is as simple as just being a much better version of the prior fight at Harato Estate, which is why the Inner Father is much higher on the list.
The Grey Crow featured in my top 10 video game bosses ranking last year, and I stand by it. I mentioned then that I hadn't played It Takes Two, but that recently changed and I can finally comment on what deserved Game of the Year in 2021, and the award goes to... it's Death's Door. It's so obviously Death's Door. This game is a borderline masterpiece 9 out of 10. It Takes Two is a well-made puzzle game with an unremarkable story and average world design. I've never seen a more insulting result in my life. Tales of Iron is a far better game than It Takes Two, and I wouldn't compare that to Death's Door. But the Grey Crow, my glorious king, the Grey Crow. Most of Death's Door's bosses range from mediocre to good. It doesn't have any stinkers on the level of Soulsborne's roster, but it generally doesn't reach those same highs either. That's with the exception of the Grey Crow. The story of the fight is incredible, a tragic encounter that explores the primary theme of the game, the reluctance to embrace death. The visuals are absolutely stellar, a gorgeous monotone canvas in the void beyond life itself. As for the mechanics, they're great as well. Not to the same quality as Inner Father, but still far superior to 90% of the bosses I've ever fought. They make excellent use of all the game's mechanics and allow a lot of player freedom for how to approach all its different moves. It's also an incredibly intense back and forth, losing the methodical approach to combat most this game's bosses adopt in favour of a relentless onslaught of frenzied attacks. It's simply brilliant, and by far the most criminally overlooked boss in any game I've played. Seriously, Game Awards, screw you. When I made my video ranking the top 10 bosses in gaming, Nameless Puppet represented Lies of P. Since then we've had the Overture DLC, and I'm sure many will say Arlecchino should take the spot. Even back then many people preferred Romeo or Luxasia, but while all those placed well in my Lies of P boss ranking, for me the Nameless Puppet stands as a high point of the game. Primarily it's thanks to his phenomenal mechanics. Sekiro is my favourite video game combat of all time, as I seem to always be reminding you, and it's thanks in large part to that combat that it's my favourite lineup of bosses in the Souls series. The Nameless Puppet feels ripped straight from Sekiro. The way the fight flows like a dance, how satisfying his moves are to parry, how the player is rewarded for matching and attempting to surpass his aggression, it all just resonates with the parts of Sekiro's gameplay loop I loved. Although it's mainly the gameplay that earns Nameless such a high spot, the cutscenes surrounding the fight do an excellent job of presenting the story it has to offer, and there's some really good character beats from all three participants. The filmmaking in those is actually really good. It's just an excellent fight, and while Arlecchino far overshadows it when it comes to presentation, the Nameless Puppet's mechanics keep him his spot as my favourite boss in Lies of P. While Blasphemous itself released in 2019, the DLC containing Sierpes didn't come out until 2021, so luckily I get the chance to talk about my favourite boss from that game. Sierpes has spectacle in spades. I mean, it's a giant purple serpent with lightning powers, and the fight takes place on its back. Come on, that's awesome. For such a unique fight, especially one against a colossal enemy, you'd be forgiven for expecting some really poor gameplay, but no, Sierpes' mechanics are all excellent. He makes perfect use of Blasphemous' combat system and forces the player to use all the techniques they've mastered in their playthrough to overcome him. The serpent just excels in every area of boss design. So why is he number 6? Well, simply, his moves aren't as fun to interact with as those of bosses higher on the list. Sierpes is an excellent boss, likely bordering on my top 30 in gaming, but there's just some I enjoy fighting more. They have a better flow to their gameplay loop. That's not to take anything away from Blasphemous' best boss. He's an incredible experience that can absolutely stand among gaming's best. Claiming the crown as Night Rain's best boss, Hjolstor completely overshadows every other fight in the game. FromSoft's best bosses seem to always be the knight with big sword style enemies, and the Night Lord is the closest thing we get to classics like Artorias and Gale. Phase 1 is a warm-up, with an unusual moveset that somehow doesn't feel overly erratic and janky. Phase 2 ramps up the spectacle massively, having one of the most awesome moves in all of Souls where he splits open the sky and draws on the powers of one of the 7 lesser Night Lords. This is the kind of varied, distinct visual design that elevates a boss to the true upper echelon of the Soulsborne roster. I do have one issue with the fight though, one that holds it back from climbing into the series' top 10. It's directly linked to Night Rain's style of gameplay, being primarily designed around 3 players. To balance this, they gave the bosses the ability to switch up their aggression almost randomly, meaning if you don't want to take unavoidable damage, you'll need to stay at range to prevent Hjolstor randomly sliming you out. I'm sure it's not an issue when playing solo, the fight is probably much more enjoyable. I found that to be the case for Fulgur and Animus, but aside from the Night Lords at the end of each run, I simply don't enjoy playing Night Rain alone. The day gameplay is just far less fun to me, so while I really want to fight Hjolstor one-on-one, I haven't jumped into a solo run of his expedition yet. But don't let my minor gripes deceive you. Hjolstor is an absolutely incredible boss, and very close to the top of FromSoft's roster. The Howling Aces is easily the best thing to come from Cuphead's delicious Last Course DLC, and I'm always looking for new ways to approach the fight so I can experience it again. Phase 1 is my favourite of any boss in the game. It's so well balanced, with importance placed on positioning due to the tennis balls and ample opportunities to perform parries. The second phase has many of the same strengths, and from here a secret final phase can even be activated. The standard final phase doesn't disappoint either, with varying but fair laser patterns and the insane mechanic of your screen being flipped around. I also love the way you control your platform of the plane, and I would take this over a real plane level any day. I'm confident in saying it is the greatest fight in Cuphead, a game known for its great bosses. I am planning to do a Blasphemous boss ranking on this channel at some point, so this does unfortunately spoil the top spot of that list, but I couldn't not include Aphelior on this list. His design really is akin to a From Software boss, with clever visual and environmental storytelling through his moveset. Many Blasphemous bosses feel the need to have dialogue cryptically exposing some of their lore, but Aphelior just doesn't need it. His entire story is communicated simply in the progression of the fight, which both narratively and mechanically is incredible. He easily has the best gameplay in a Blasphemous boss. Every move feels deliberate and has an incredibly clear tell encounter, but working together they create a demanding process of precise reactions. What I love about this boss is that it's approachable with absolutely any playstyle, whether you want to use parries with Ruger Al Alba or rely purely on great positioning using Veredicto. It's always a brilliant boss, one definitely deserving of its flowers in my top 10 bosses in gaming history.
Messmer is the poster child for the best DLC in Souls, and FromSoft definitely chose the best boss to represent it. Messmer excels in all areas. Fantastic gameplay, compelling lore, gripping visual design. It all comes together to create Elden Ring's best boss fight. His opening cutscene is chilling and enthralling, as is the fight itself, with blinding speed that requires incredibly swift reactions and precise movements. Basically every move has flame after effects to punish sloppy dodging and keep the player on their toes for the entire encounter. His second phase is just as strong, the snakes having frenzied hitboxes, but none of the jank of the snakes from Bloodborne's Shadows of Yharnam. He's one of the hardest bosses in Souls, and it all feels incredibly fair and earned. Messmer is the high point of Shadow of the Erdtree, and definitely deserves to be among the best of the best in FromSoft boss roster. Wow, just
Wow, I don't know where to start. Words can't capture the incredible fight that is the Dancers. They execute on every element of boss design to perfection. Soundtrack, one of Hollow Knight's best. Visuals, so unique. Gameplay, the best part of the fight by far. It has 4 entire phases, each changing something slightly to spice up the fight. Its length makes it an endurance fight through and through, but you never get bored of engaging with these moves despite having to be so patient. You have to be keenly aware of the boss's patterns at all times or you'll get caught. But the rhythm of the fight is just so incredible, it never gets stale. I think that's what makes the gameplay stand out so much here. The rhythm of it. It has such a satisfying flow. It really does feel like you're part of a choreographed dance. Almost like the parry counter loop of Sekiro, the game with the greatest combat of all time. They only have 3 attacks to throw at you, which is good considering how long the fight can last. But it's what they do with this simplicity that works so well. There's such vast variety in the directions of their dashes, and while I did notice a few predetermined sequences in the mix, they can seemingly go anywhere at any time, but it somehow manages to still be well balanced. They function almost like magnets. They always move in response to the other. Maybe that's a weird analogy, but I'm sure if you fought them, you understand what I'm getting at. This solves the biggest issue that plagues so many gank fights, being the boss's AIs not functioning well with one another, and leading to situations where the player cannot avoid damage. That's impossible here. There will always be plenty of safe places for you to stand. There's also the web-like frenzy of slashes that fills the screen, forcing you to find a gap and jump and hover within it to avoid them. It seamlessly makes use of all the techniques in Hornet's toolkit, and that's always a good thing. And the final attack, my favourite one, is where they come together in the centre of the screen and create an AoE of white slashes in the centre of the arena. It's honestly really easy to dodge and a great opportunity to get damage in, but will punish reckless players a great deal. But the reason I love it so much is how it presents lore through gameplay. So let's discuss the lore, the phenomenal, subtle lore. The Dancers are mechanical creations of Farloom, designed as performance to welcome bugs to the Citadel, but their construction was so effective. They're such a perfect replication of life that they developed a soul. Not 2 souls, not one each, just one they share between them. And when we finish that 3rd phase, cutting down one of the Dancers, we shatter half that soul. The 4th phase ensues and we're compelled by our natural drive as gamers to mercilessly beat on this now virtually defenseless, broken half of a whole we destroyed. The score was already incredible, but here it transitions to a somber, despairing music box embodying the suffering of the surviving Dancer. It's brutal, it's gut-wrenching, it's everything the lore of a video game boss should be. Personally, this scene resonated with me more than watching Sif limp around in Dark Souls, seeing the remaining Dancer float to the centre of the screen, only to be unable to perform its attack without its other half, instead falling to its knees. Devastating. So yeah, this boss is truly something special. The design is one of the coolest and most unique I've seen in any game. The gameplay is stronger than nearly any other 2D boss. The lore is fantastic and actively plays a role in the mechanics of the fight. The cogwork Dancers are simply perfect. If this video hasn't reinforced for you what I said at the start about the current decade bringing us some incredible bosses, I don't know what to say. I'm sure you won't agree with it all. You probably won't agree with much at all. Silksong fans typically claim Lost Lace or Carmelita as their favourite. Aphelior isn't often seen as the best boss in Blasphemous. I know many people consider Chef Saltbaker to be Cuphead's best boss, but at the least we can agree that if boss fights keep evolving as they have in recent years, the next half of the decade is going to be incredibly exciting. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and if you'd be so kind, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. As always, stay respectful when leaving your thoughts in the comments below, and I know you're going to stick around for my next video.